All right, welcome back to another video in the COE training series. The focus of today's training is going to be on building reports and dashboards. So taking information that we have in the system and expanding on it, filtering it, creating our own reports, and then adding those reports to a dashboard. A lot of these functionalities are already built into Dynamics, and we're simply augmenting or adding to things that we already have in the system. Today we'll show how to expand on an existing report and then add new things to it that we don't see uniquely on the report that we're looking at. So our first step of building a report is, well, logging into Dynamics. So depending on which environment that you're using, either UAT, so the sandbox and the testing environment, or our production data, or the production dynamics, which is our live data, so the actual information and data that we use for our constituents. Navigate to one of those two. Always recommend when we're trying out new things, testing it out in UAT, but with reports, there's not really too much that you can do to mess something up. Really, this is a way for you to try out new things. So we're going to first start looking at our list views, or what I'll also call reports. There's a couple different ways of creating reports. We can either do them through contact data or engagement or event data, but we're really going to focus on leveraging reports and list views from a contact perspective. Going through these steps and kind of learning the process will allow you to apply it to just about any area in Dynamics. So the primary focus of today is going to be on contact information. So let's go into our contacts. And we're going to start with our all contacts list view. If you remember from our previous trainings, to get to a different report or list view in context, we click our drop down here and then select one that we have. So we're going to start with all contacts because that gives us as much information as we want. So this right here that we're looking at is essentially a report. It is a different visualization of essentially a Excel document. It is columns. We can add filters. We can add more information. But the difference between the two is, unlike a static Excel sheet, we can take information from all different types of areas within Dynamics. We can add information related to these contacts that we see. We can cross-reference it with other areas within Dynamics. So we can do a lot more than what we would see on a standard Excel document. So starting in all contacts, we're going to go through columns and filters, starting with our columns. So, okay, great. On our all contacts list view and report, we've got some very basic information. We've got name, their preferred name, program, person type, status reason, and all of that, which is, it might be helpful information. You might not ever use modified by or modified on, so let's get rid of it. So to add or remove columns, we click our Edit Columns button up here on the top right. Might be a little hard to see, so I'll zoom in a bit. Let's click Edit Columns. This will pop open a screen on your right-hand side where you can click and drag the different columns that already exist. So say we want their program to come first, or their status reason to go above person type. And like I mentioned, we might not use modified by or modified on. So to remove these columns, we click our three little dots here on the right side of whatever the column is, and then click remove. Alternatively, if we didn't want to click and drag, we can click up or move up or down. But we're going to remove these last two. Say we're good with this. This is all the information that we want. To set this, we click apply. Now we can see that we only have those columns that we wanted, that we removed those two other ones. To add in another column, we open up that Edit Columns option again, and then up here in the top of our bar where we see Add New Column, click that. And then here we've got contact specific information. So there's kind of two separate buckets that we're looking at right now. We've got contact and then related. Essentially, what contact is going to be the bucket that we're looking at. We are on a report for all contacts. So our first columns options are going to be information that is contained within a column. So things like address, phone number, email, t-shirt size, any contact specific data that we can think of is going to be listed in here. There's a lot of different options here that either the COE Dynamics doesn't use or exists somewhere in Dynamics in the entire universe of Dynamics. So you might not use all of this. So definitely recommend using the search bar. And we'll get to how we do that in just a second. Our other option is related. So anytime we hear the term related in Dynamics, essentially what it means is it is a entity or an item that exists in Dynamics that has a relationship with something else. So earlier in our previous trainings, we talked about things like related forms and related contacts. Those are, in the case of related forms, that is a form that has a relationship with a contact. So that in itself is a related entity. So for those relationship items, we can find that in our related tag here, or our related column box. Call out with some of the relationship items is not every relationship is going to be able to be dragged and added to a list view, depending on which bucket you're looking at. So if you're looking at a contact list view, you might not be able to set a relationship with a engagement opportunity or a related form. We might have to look at a different list view in a different bucket and area of Dynamics to pull that. A good example of that is related forms. While those relationships exist to a contact, we might need to start with that kind of hierarchy from a related form sense and then add contact data to that rather than the opposite way. Let's start adding a column. I think a big example of potential columns that we want are regions. And we want to know where our contacts are from and where they participate in within our state program. So by searching region in our search box, we see this option for primary region. If we wanted to add that, we click it. But we can go even further down into the other categorization of region, area, and delegation. So we can add all three of those levels. Let's add delegation. And then on top of that, we want to know these people's email addresses. Let's add their emails, and why not? Let's add their mobile phone number. Same thing, once we're ready, we close out of that box, and then we can drag these around. I want their email after their full name, and then once I'm ready, click apply. And now we'll refresh. And some of our test data here doesn't have regions associated with it, so you might see some blank boxes, but that primary region area should be filtered out and added to most of your list views. So great. So we have added some additional columns here to our list view. Before we move on to columns, make a big call out here for making sure that we save this view. So where we started was in all contacts, and we are augmenting and changing an existing list view. Anytime something is changed on a list view, we add another column, we add a filter, whatever that may be, we'll see this asterisk symbol right next to whatever list view we're looking at. What that means is that is an unsaved change, and we need to go in and either save it to the existing list view that we're building or create a new one. So to save that, we'll click our drop down. And then at the bottom here, we've got save new view, or if we're editing a previous report, it might say, save changes to current view. So we'll go ahead and save this as a new view. That way we don't lose it if I happen to fat finger and go outside. So we'll do this user guide training list. You can add a description if you want. Not really relevant, but More power to you if you do. So name it whatever you want and then click save. And now this will default here to your list view or to the view on the drop down. And anytime we add or create a new list view or report, we can see that by the little silhouette icon here on the drop down, and we can navigate between them if we want. So anytime you see that shadow icon, just means that it's a personalized view of existing data. Okay, so now we can keep adding changes to this document or to this report. And let's start with filters. A couple ways of doing filters. Just like Excel, at the top of each of our columns, we can filter out specific information. So in my case, I'm looking at a lot of program data, so I'm going to filter this out by just Oregon. And now that we can see that this has been added a filter, and I've gone down from over 5,000 contacts to just 1,100. But we can see that I've added a filter by the dark black filter icon. I don't really know what to call that, but that's what we're going with. Additionally, I can set this out to, I just want to look at coaches. I don't think we've imported any coaches, so there's no data. I'm actually going to clear these filters by clicking on the filter icon and then clicking clear filter. And we can look at Washington for an example. Oops. Additionally, if you do need to move these columns around, you can click and drag from this view as well. I don't like doing this just because it scares me when it refreshes my screen. But additionally, we can sort this information. I want to sort full name A to Z, or I want to filter out emails that I don't have. So I'm going to do my operator, which is your, think about from a mathematics standpoint, greater than, equal to, or does not contain, does not have any information. This is your operator symbol. So we're going to say, we're going to filter out anything that has data. So we should only be seeing contacts that have emails associated with their record. Same thing, we've added filters this way. If we wanted to save that, we click our drop down. And like I mentioned earlier, to save changes to the existing view that we just created, we'll have this new option for save changes to current view. Awesome. The other way of adding filters is adding some additional parameters. So on these column filters, we're only filtering data that exists on the column. So if I were trying to filter out something that wasn't a column, I'm going to need to do an additional step. So to do that, we'll go up to this button here where we see Edit Filters. Sometimes it takes a second to load just because it is testing and I'm loading a lot of data. But here we can see that the filters that I added on the columns are already built in here. So we can already see some of the filters and what they're doing. And this is kind of a more in-depth view of potential filters. If we wanted to add additional filters here, where we see add, we can add things to the existing filters or create a new one by looking at the bottom of the decision tree here. So let's add a row. So adding a row or a group will determine, kind of going back to the buckets that we're looking in. So if I add a row, I'm going to be looking within contact data. A related entity will allow me to look at other information that is in the system. So a good example of that would be, I'm going to be looking at related forms. I'm going to be looking at a specific type of form. And I want to see I want to see that it has some type of data. So I want to see everybody that has a related form in the system. Additionally, we can add things like, all right, I'm going to look at our active contacts. Oops. I'm going to look at contacts that were created this week. Apparently there are none for our, let's just look at active ones. So we can do status equals active. I just want to look at our active contacts. Still over 5,000, so I'm going to keep filtering this down. So I'm going to look at equals active. Or I want to look at age is, I want to look at greater than 80-year-old. So I want to look at 80-year-old contacts. Now, hopefully, we have taken our existing data from over 5,000 records and now filtered it down to 20. Even further on that, I want to look at how many of those 80-year-olds are volunteers. So I can add another filter for is a volunteer equals yes. Now I've gone from 20 to 13, and I can keep going down further and further and further. So while some of these filters probably aren't exactly what you would use on a daily basis, the purpose of what I'm showing you is to showcase how we can take a lot of data and then filter it down to just a few data, all by just adding columns and filters and building onto it. This is a pretty giant report, so I'm going to get rid of these. If we want to get rid of filters, we can add this, click this little 3 little dots here, a little snake icon, and then click delete. And now we'll be back at just all contacts here. Now, we have a lot of these pre-built reports for you for things like volunteers and unified partners, but let's show how we build that uniquely from what we have on this list view and report that we've started building. So I want to find a report of all of our contacts that are in the system right now and determine who of them are unified partners, and then I want to pull out those that are between the ages of 13 and 18. So to do that, we'll add a new row, and we'll do is volunteer, yes. And we're also going to look at is unified partner equals yes. So let's start with that. So we're looking for people who are volunteers and unified partners. We've taken records from over 5,000, and now we're down to 1,100. Now my second operation is looking at age, and is greater than or equal to, what did I say, 13. Apply. Okay, now we're down, we're still at 1,100, we've still got quite a few here. But then to that, I also want to look at age of less than or equal to 18. Between ages of 13 and 18. Now we have taken that list of 1,100 records and moved them down to 650. Now, what if I wanted to find their registered role? Actually, let's look at those of these who are active contacts. So we might have 650 in them, but maybe they're not all active unified partners. Okay, I guess all of these unified partners are also active, so that's not helpful. let's look at how many of them have a related form. For a background check. Or any form for that matter. Great, so now we've even filtered this down to 581 who have related forms for Unified Partner. So that kind of shows the kind of long and short of adding columns and adding filters to a list. This is essentially, like I started out with, a Excel sheet displayed in Dynamics that takes information from all different types of places within Dynamics. Like a lot of our reports, there may be one person at the organization who creates a lot of these, or most likely if you're watching me rambling on this video, you are the person that does a lot of these. You may have to share these reports out with other staff members. Sharing on Dynamics is super easy. So on our drop-down list of our reports that we just made, right here at the bottom, we've got Manage and Share Views. Opening this up, we'll see a list of all of our reports that we've made. Big call out, if you're like me and set up a lot of different reports, you can actually hide these by hovering over one of the reports that you've made, and where you see the little eyeball icon, you can click it and it'll remove it from your drop-down list. So you can clean up some reports without actually fully deleting them. To share a list view report that you've made, scroll down and find it. And then where we see the three little snake dots, click that. And then we can share it with other folks. So clicking share will open up the share records screen. And here we can type in somebody's name. I'm going to share this with Ed Uphoff. And then click his name here on the little checkbox, and then give him the permissions. So what these permissions are is determining how much ability Ed has into doing anything with the report. So if we select read, Ed would only be able to read the information. He wouldn't be able to change any of the columns or filters. But with write access, he'd be able to change the list view and make it into his own. Nobody will have delete. You won't be able to give other folks the ability to delete their information. Assign will be able to assign that organizationally wide. So say you have a report that is, for the entire organization, you need to assign it to everybody. You could give Ed access to assigning it to other users. And then share will give Ed the ability to share this report with other staff members. So really the ones I recommend are read, write, and share, and then or read and write, just determining how many permissions you want to give somebody. Once you're ready to share, click share. And now on Ed's drop down on his contacts list view, he'll be able to access this report and look at it. And because he has write access, we'll have the ability to changing any filters or columns. That will be only localized to him. So any changes that a shared report has done to it will only be shown on their end of things. And they would need to reshare it with you if those changes need to be made across the board. Close out of this. So now, like I mentioned, next time Ed goes in here, he'll find the user guide training list under his drop-down view. Awesome. This kind of sums up, the very simplified understanding of building a report. This functionality, as far as adding columns and list views, can be done to just about any area within Dynamics. The same thing we can do on related forms. We can add columns to existing reports. create reports for background checks expiring in this month, or whatever that may need to be done, you can do through edit columns and edit filters. And one cool thing about building out these reports is you might use a lot of different reports on a very frequent basis, and might see the need for having a kind of a one-stop shop for everything that you've built. So to do that, we can do that through our dashboards feature. You saw this in previous trainings where we've got some of this visualization of data in pie charts and bar charts, and that's not the only functionality of this. We can add things like all of those list views that we've created, all to a very simplified, clean version of the data. So to do that, we'll go to Add New and Dynamics 365 Dashboard. It's your only option here. Give it a second to load. Might need that exit out of here. Try it again. Maybe. Awesome. So our first option here is to choose a layout. This is entirely personal preference, however you want your information displayed. I'm a big fan of the 3-column regular or 2-column regular. I like my boxes all uniform. Once you've selected your layout, click Create. And this will open up a different window outside of your dynamic screen that you'll be able to start adding existing reports. And one big training feature is if we're wanting to add new reports that we've built, we first need to start with actually building that report. So the first part of this training, we built a custom report view. And if we wanted to add that to our dashboard, we would need to have it created first. You can't add something that doesn't exist. So now that this is loaded, we can see our 6 boxes here. Don't worry, you can always add more boxes to it if you have a lot of reports to display, but you'll start off with whatever layout you started with. First step is to give it a name. Call mine User Guide Dashboard. And then here you can start adding charts and lists and other entities. You can add websites if you'd like to. But for today, we're just going to look at adding a list view and visualization of a list view. So let's start by inserting a list. So this middle option here looks like a 3-ring binder paper. Click that. For the component, for our record type, this is going to be the bucket that we're looking at. So earlier we built a contact report. So we're going to go down and search for contacts. And then for view, this will be all of your default views that are already set up. But then at the bottom here under My Views, this is where you'll be able to find that custom report that you just built. So User Guide Training List. Click Add. And one note here is, depending on how much data is on that list view, you might not see the data populating here. That is simply just to save your computer and the load time on this screen, because there's really nothing to look at until we save it. So don't worry if you're not seeing something here. We can continue to add other things. I want to look at an engagement opportunities report, and I want to look at engagements in this year, and add that. I'm also going to look at related forms, and I want to have a report of related forms that are soon to expire. Keep adding those. I can also add visualizations. So I'm going to look at my contacts. Now I want to look at my demographics of athletes, male to female. I'm also going to look at related forms. There's not really a good visualization. Look at region. Some of these, depending on how the data is set up, might not be something that you want to visualize anyway. So let's look at active volunteers or all contacts again, and our minors list. Okay. Like I said, we can keep adding to these if we want. Just keep adding more and more. If you do end up running out, up here at the top where you see chart, list, web resource, timeline, if you click this, it'll add a new one. So you can keep moving on even after you've filled up all 6 of these. But I think we've got a good start so far. So let's save this. Close it. And here we go with all of those reports that we already made. So our initial training list view report that we made, our engagement opportunities this year, and all of our forms expiring. We can click into this even further and manage those as we need to, but this is a quick way of getting to this information. Same thing, we can add filters here if we need to. Navigate to different pages. This is really just a quick kind of visualization way of getting to it. If this is a dashboard that we're going to use quite often, up here at the top on our sitemap, we can set it as our default. And now next time we click out of it, and we come back to dashboards, this will be the first thing that we see. Just like a list view report, we can also share dashboards. So share dashboard up here in our right-hand corner. We go to share and then manage access, our last option. And this will open up that same box for us where we can search for Ed and give him whatever access we want. Read, write, and share. Now, same thing like finding a list view that we've shared. Underneath our drop-down list here, you'll find either a report that's been shared with you or a dashboard that's been shared with you, or in Ed's case, he'll find it under his. And he can set that as his default, share it with others, and see all the information. With that, that is kind of a long and short of reports and dashboards. This is kind of a way to get you started and enough information to be dangerous with, where you can start building out your own reports and dashboards as you desire. But really the key features are understanding how to add columns and how to add filters to them, and then building those reports to then add to a dashboard. While there is certainly more to it as far as building out reports, this will get you started. And my biggest recommendation from a training perspective is go in and try out new things. When it comes to reports and columns and filters, the worst thing that you can do is add a filter that doesn't have any data, because then you can just delete the filter and bring it all back. You're not impacting anybody's actual portal account or any of their data. So don't be afraid to mess around and see how you can get to the result that you're looking for. With that, appreciate you guys watching. Feel free to reach out for questions. If not, have a great day. See ya.